Good morning, and welcome to Ark and Dove Presbyterian Church in Odenton, Maryland. You're now in the lobby, our weekly pre-service program. I'm Brian Boudreau, the clerk of session at Ark and Dove, and your host in the lobby today. I will be talking to Parish Associate Caroline Price Gibson, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, let's start with the announcements. As you can see, I'm here in the lobby at Ark and Dove, and it's been many, many weeks, months even, since we have last set foot in the church. But that will change, and during the months ahead, the session will be setting a target to open the church for in-person service by the end of the summer. It goes without saying that there will be many changes, and these details are being worked out now. Our highest priority, though, is the health and safety of the congregation. So in the coming weeks, you may see a new head or two in the sanctuary. These will be elders on the session trying to iron out the kinks to provide you a better worship experience. But this will always include the live streaming service. Now, if you haven't signed up for this week's small group, you need to. Pastor John and Pastor Tim will be hosting a special discussion on the book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree, on June 23rd at 7 p.m. And there's never been a better time to get in the conversation. So contact one of the pastors for a Zoom invitation. And don't forget to sign up for this year's edition of Vacation Bible School. It is a different format taking place over 5 weeks, beginning on July 13th. So we need adult and youth volunteers as well. So contact Christina Nelson or Linda Lewis for more information. Summer Sunday School has begun, and it will be on Sundays from 9 to 9:30. And if you're interested in teaching or just being the second adult in the room, please contact Julie Devers. Now, our music directors have outdone themselves this week, the third Sunday of Pentecost. Margaret has put together a children's choir to help lead worship, and Pat has composed new music for the doxology. So I really think we're in for a nice treat. But that's not all. They're not stopping there. Margaret is putting together a large adult virtual choir for June 28th. And so it'll be a little different format than how you've seen the hymns and anthems currently. So if you've not been able to participate in the choir up to this point, I would recommend reaching out to Margaret to sign up and get some more details. So joining me today is Parish Associate Caroline Price Gibson. Welcome, Caroline. I'm so glad that you could join us this week. We had Stephen a few weeks ago to talk about communion, and this week we're going to talk about General Assembly. Before we dive into that, how have you been?
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me to talk with you today. I've been fine. It's been a strange year for all of us, but in many ways, we are blessed.
Certainly. So before the COVID and all the shutdown happened, Baltimore Presbytery was supposed to host this year's General Assembly. Can you tell us what General Assembly is and what normally happens at these events?
Well, General Assembly is the governing body of the Presbyterian Church USA. Now, most of you know this, but to understand General Assembly, we need to start with our local Presbyterian congregation. Every congregation has a session, ruling elders, lay people, elected by the congregation and ordained to govern the congregation. And most congregations also have a pastor, call them teaching elders. Groups of congregations form a presbytery, and Ark and Dove is part of the Baltimore Presbytery. Now, several times a year, we send commissioners to gatherings of Baltimore Presbytery, our pastors and a couple of elders. There are 170 presbyteries in the Presbyterian Church USA, and every 2 years, the presbyteries send commissioners to the General Assembly, an even number of pastors and lay people, depending upon the size of the presbytery. And the presbyteries also send youth advisory delegates. General Assembly meets for about a week to consider overtures which have come from the presbyteries or from the agencies of the national church, and to make decisions that impact the future of the church and the mission that we do together as a national church. We always hear about the controversial matters. Over the years, that's included the ordination of women as elders and pastors, and more recently, the ordination of LGBTQI people, or whether pastors could perform weddings for gay and lesbian couples. Sometimes General Assemblies have voted to boycott or disinvest in companies based on social justice issues. We've recently adopted a new confession of faith, the Brahman Declaration, out of South Africa, which expresses the church's condemnation of racism and affirmation of all people as God's beloved children. Now, a lot of the work of the General Assembly is the kind of nitty-gritty work of governing and guiding the church, like budgets for the national church, where we will have our mission priorities and how much our per capita giving will be, the money that each congregation gives for each member to support the work of the national church. And this year it's $8.95, and they're recommending that it stay that way. This year was going to be very exciting for us because our presbytery, Baltimore Presbytery, was going to be hosting General Assembly. We would have had all kinds of ways to get involved. And I wish you could have experienced the worship. There's incredible energy and a feeling of family and a sense of the Holy Spirit's guidance as we gather from all over the country. And there are interesting displays, and you hear from all kinds of inspiring people. General Assembly's a lot of fun. An elder from my church went to Detroit about 4 years ago, and she was hesitant about going, but when she came back, she asked if she could go again to the next General Assembly. She was so excited by it. If you're a commissioner, one of the first orders of business when you arrive is the election of a moderator and a stated clerk. Then you meet with your committee. Everyone's assigned to one of about a dozen committees. And for about the first couple of days, you'll be debating the resolutions and proposals that pertain to your committee work. On the final days of the assembly, the committees present their recommendations. The youth advisory delegates have a vote on the committees, but they do not have a vote on the assembly floor. But before any vote is taken by commissioners, the advisory delegates vote so that the commissioners can be informed before they vote. Young adult advisors, ecumenical advisors, missionary advisors, theological seminary advisors, and then the commissioners vote. This year, I was looking forward to seeing a young man from my congregation in Nebraska. He's a young adult advisor from his presbytery. He's from Jamaica, and he came to our church as a drummer for our praise band. And he wasn't a very good drummer, and he wasn't a Presbyterian, but he got better on the drums, and I guess he got religion because now he's studying to become a pastor. Unfortunately, I won't be seeing him because this year, due to the virus, the assembly is being conducted entirely online.
So in the past, you've attended the General Assembly. Could you maybe share with us a moment that really stands out for you?
It's strange how things seem very intense at the time and fade in our memories. I went to the assembly many years ago in Wichita, Kansas, and I was assigned to be on the vocations committee. One of the matters that came before us was the ordination of LGBT elders and pastors. The year before, the church had agreed to study the matter for 3 years, but there was a large group in the church that wanted the church to act immediately to make sure that no LGBT pastors were ordained and that those who are already ordained were stripped of their ordination. A majority of the commissioners on the committee wanted to proceed with the 3-year study and not take action for another 2 years to give the church time to work things out. But the youth on the committee, about a third of the committee, sided with those who wanted to act immediately to ban LGBT pastors. So the committee recommended to the General Assembly that we terminate the study and act immediately to make sure no pastors were LGBT. Those of us who disagreed with this recommendation submitted a minority report. I spoke on the floor of the assembly, which was terrifying since I never speak up anywhere, and found myself quoted in the national press, and the General Assembly voted with our minority position. So that's what I remember.
Wow, so really got to see, sort of the sausage being made. So this year's going to be different. How are the meetings being handled then?
Well, as I mentioned, it's entirely online. The theme for the 224th General Assembly is From Lament to Hope. I'm not an expert on what it looks like, so Tim or Brian can correct me, but My understanding is that the assembly met online on Friday and voted for co-moderators. And on Saturday, they joined with the Poor People's Campaign, which is an online march on Washington, or an online event.
Mm.
And then on Tuesday, they'll join with a Youth Rising event. Early next week, they'll be breaking into their respective committees, and also we'll hear from a number of presenters online. And then next Friday and Saturday, they'll meet again as the whole assembly to act on whatever needs their attention.
So you have not just the standard committee meetings, but you also have then events that to bring people together and participation in that
Yes.
sense. So what can we expect from this year's General Assembly? Do you have any insight? Maybe some announcements or changes?
Well, mapping the financial future of the PCUSA was an important issue to be worked on at this assembly. The place where the assembly meets always gives the assembly a flavor. And this year, Baltimore was an excellent place to focus on the African American community, their heritage, issues of racism in our church and in our country. And even though the assembly has not been able to come to Baltimore, the country has brought these issues to the assembly. So I'm sure that these concerns will be front and center of the assembly as they consider issues of justice and where God is leading us.
So I guess the question then is what General Assembly, what this could mean for Ark and Dove and for us as individuals in the church.
Well, Ark and Dove has been ahead of the curve in that our congregation is focused on the issue of racism in our community and nation. And it's also been concerned with a number of the other social justice issues which will be at the center of what comes out of this General Assembly. We can relate to our congregation. We can relate to our own congregation and what happens in the assembly as sort of in the background, usually. One of the ways that God guides us and encourages us to move where the Spirit is leading us. One of the ways we're part of the bigger picture and connected to other Presbyterians throughout the nation and the world. And one reason why, if we move from Maryland and find ourselves in Texas or California or even Nebraska, and we wander into a Presbyterian church, hopefully we'll feel at home there. It's that it kind of binds us together with the things we're concerned about and the ways that we worship together and the ways we nurture one another and relate to the world.
And having gone to Presbyterian churches elsewhere in the country, I can attest that that is true. I definitely feel at home. So there are activities throughout the week. Where can I find more information on General Assembly? Or what if I wanted to get involved?
Well, Google PCUSA General Assembly and you'll find links that will take you to live streaming or give you a schedule or tell you what's going on. And if you have questions, I know that Tim is going to be way better at this, better at directing you or helping you than I am. So I hate to send you to him because I know how busy he is, but at the same time, I know he can help you.
So I went online just yesterday and I signed up. There's a newsletter that they're sending out. So any news that comes out from General Assembly, you just put your email address in, and I'm already getting announcements, and you can follow them on Twitter as well. So I'm trying to, get anything that kind of comes out just to pay attention to what's going on. So thank you so much for all this great information. Before we go, I just wanted to give you a minute, since I have you here, just to tell us about any other projects that you might be working on. You always seem to have something going on, something simmering on the stove there.
Well, I don't have a lot going on right now. I think COVID kind of shuts a lot of things down. This weekend, it's been the Poor People's Campaign, which I believe even if the congregation didn't check in on it on Saturday, there's another opportunity on Sunday to check in on that, and the assembly is going to be part of that. So that's an online event. Local food pantries, trying to support them. That I have, but I always feel I wish I should be doing more. Not doing a whole lot.
You do such great stuff. So thank you, Caroline. Every time we hear from you, we learn something new. So it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you for joining us today. Before we leave, I want to congratulate everyone who has achieved a milestone this spring with graduation. With everything happening in the world, it's important to take a moment for yourself, a meditative walk or some time away from your devices or just a silent prayer. So we'll see you again next week. Keep wearing those masks, and the live streaming service will begin momentarily.